Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Third Take. I'm your co-host, Lubaba.
And my name is Taha, in case you forgot.
Yeah, you really shouldn't do that. And today we're going to talk about episode 4. Today we're going to talk about the ICC, the International Criminal Court, as well as the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, and how they recently issued an arrest warrant for the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, my guy Bibi, and what that actually means.
Not my guy.
Well, our bestie Bibi. We take that as listen. What if he's listening to this?
We're going to talk about Wicked.
We're also going to talk about Wicked. We saw Wicked yesterday. We have a lot to say, friends.
It's giving current geopolitical climate. It's giving, yeah.
Snowpiercer wasn't enough.
No, it wasn't.
Okay,
but coming back to arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu, the current Prime Minister of Israel, and also Yoav Gallant, the former Defense Minister of Israel, and Daif, who is one of the leaders of Hamas, who has allegedly been killed by Israel. So I think that's something we would love to discuss today. To talk about, were the arrest warrants expected? What happens from here? What even is the International Criminal Court?
Yeah.
So, how do we want to start this?
I guess I would personally love to know, what is the ICC? What is the ICJ? These are bodies that I'm hearing about a lot this year. And for me, this is still very eye-opening as to, what systems of justice that we have in place across the world, especially at a global level. So, Taha, why don't you tell us a little about the ICC, ICJ, bring us up to speed.
Absolutely. I think that you're not alone in this, and I'm not alone in this.
Thank you.
A lot of us are learning. I think a lot of us are learning a lot since last year, and I think
some would say too much.
Some would say too much.
Most would say too much.
Tired of living through unprecedented global events. But yes, so when it comes to the International Criminal Court, or ICC, so International Criminal Court, so the ICC was formed in 2002, and there was a treaty called the Rome Statute, where 125 member states are now part of the ICC, where they got together in 1998 and said we should establish the International Criminal Court so it can investigate 4 crimes: genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crimes of aggression.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, they decided that this would happen in 1998, and it was actually implemented in July 2002.
I see. It took a whole 4 years.
It took a whole 4 years.
But I'm glad that exists, because actually, which is to me, that's wild that it took that long after the UN formed to have an international criminal court. And to have an international justice system in place. But I am happy that, we have established a system that addresses those 4 pieces of war and violence specifically, because I think we love to talk about different empires, the rise and falls of them throughout history, and we love to look at the different patterns that we also see today, because that's just what's going to give you insight, knowledge, perspective, and also motivation that working class people can make a difference, and that, when we mobilize at a mass scale, we can overthrow oppressive ruling powers. But I think those 4 pieces specifically, I think it's really important, because those are often the tools, the main tools that are used by colonizers, by imperial forces, in order to get rid of a group of people, displace a group of people, etc., to uphold their own colonial ideologies or other imperial ideologies and agendas, right?
Absolutely. I think that's a very poignant point, because it really speaks to also, it raises a question, right? Who even decides that these crimes are taking place?
Yeah.
And this is what these countries came together in Rome in 1998. They said we should have an international criminal court.
Thank you for answering our question before we even had to ask.
You're very welcome, Lulu.
Thank you. Yes, in Rome.
Love it. Roma. But going back to international justice, because you brought that up, there has been another body that has existed since 1945, which is a United Nations body as well, as is the ICC. The other United Nations body that has existed way before the International Criminal Court is the International Court of Justice. So ICJ specifically does not really cover a lot of these crimes, right? Its main goal is to help negotiate between countries when they're at odds with each other, right? So we do see a very important case right now of South Africa who took Israel to the International Court of Justice for the crime of genocide as well.
All my homies love South Africa.
We love South Africa. And I think that, when people who have experienced apartheid are telling you something is apartheid, something is genocide, I think it's time to tune in and hear them out.
Yeah, and truly, I think, at a geopolitical level, I'm sure that global leaders, outside of South Africa, wanted to also take Israel to court, but I hope that they came together and said, actually, the point of South Africa taking Israel to court is so important here because it sets the precedent that actually we have the lived experience, and everyone in the world knows that, and we've agreed on that, and we are saying that this is exactly what we experienced happening once more, because that's harder to refute, right? And it's important that countries that have set that precedent or overcome those issues and those battles and have come out victorious. I think it is the duty of those countries to take a stand when they see the same thing happening to another nation state and they know that it's wrong, right? It's important for us to stand up for each other.
100%. And I think, and something really important to remember is that International Criminal Court says on its website that the court itself is powerless. It is actually only going to get its power by the countries if they live up to their responsibilities.
So true. It's the members. It's the members. Oh my God, it's literally just like a union. It's the members who have the power, not the... That's crazy.
But out of all the countries in the world, only 125 are actually members of the International Criminal Court. So when these arrest warrants came out for Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, the Israeli Prime Minister, and Yoav Gallant, well, that's Benjamin Netanyahu, and Yoav Gallant is the former defense minister of Israel. A lot of countries, like the United Nations, said that this is outrageous, and Biden said that this is equating Hamas and Israel. And they said that ICC does not have jurisdiction over Israel because Israel is not one of the members of International Criminal Court.
Oh.
Yeah,
great.
The interesting thing is they have a point, but that point is actually refuted by all the evidence that we have based off of precedent. So, by that logic, the United States and France and Germany should all have said, oh, the warrant against Vladimir Putin doesn't make any sense, which was also, issued a few years ago after the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And they should have said the same thing because Russia is also not a member of the ICC.
Okay.
But interestingly, for some reason, that didn't happen. And United States
For some reason,
Western hegemony, American hegemony.
That's quite interesting.
Quite interesting. But that's the thing, right? Where all of a sudden, when arrest warrants for Vladimir Putin are issued a year or so ago, America, all the EU countries are like, yeah, that's really important. It doesn't matter if it doesn't have jurisdiction. Right. There are ways when court can actually hold people responsible.
Is there now?
But when it comes to Israel, also, something I want to say, Germany's reply is so messed up. They said it wouldn't be right considering our Nazi history. And I don't think they realized that there was a comma was not used in that sentence. And it literally just says it would be wrong for us to arrest an Israeli leader because of our Nazi history.
Oh, babe.
The lesson after the Second World War should have been that this should not happen to anyone.
Yeah, babe.
Not just to European people and European Jewish people.
Yeah. This is the opposite.
It should not happen to them, and it should not happen to anyone.
No one. This is literally the opposite of what South Africa did. South Africa went through this experience, learned the lesson that they need to stand up for their neighbors, and they have to stand up against oppression when it happens again, when they see it, when they can clearly, visibly see it, and not only that they have to stand up, but that they have to, seek out justice, right? Germany is like, our hands are tied.
Yeah, and I mean, also, I think that talking about our previous episode about weaponizing identity, I think
Yes.
Germany really weaponizes and forgoes its responsibility. We're talking about the government, right?
Yeah.
So the German government really kind of weaponizes their history to actually not show up for the global south,
Right.
and that's really messed up.
Yeah, they use
And-
it as a scapegoat instead of being like, oh, we learned better.
Absolutely. And then you have France, which
It's giving gaslighting.
it is giving gaslighting by
Yeah.
United States, Germany,
Yeah.
and now enter France.
Yeah.
Who would have thought France would take a racist stance?
Not France. We look to France as inspirations, as organizers, because the
She's
French
joking. She's joking.
as working class people. Because
You know,
sometimes,
like Fosse.
okay, listen, I love to look at France's history because it's so interesting to dissect.
The Paris
and
Commune.
absolutely, and the French Revolution was iconic. Let's talk about that in
stays
another
iconic.
episode. It does. Let them indeed eat all the cake they desire. I think that organizers that are into more direct action really look at some of France's tactics
Absolutely.
of revolution in the past, and
And current protests.
absolutely, and current protests, right? Like we just saw hundreds of thousands, right? Half a million
not
people.
millions,
Over 500,000 people in France that rose up against their government trying to change a policy about, I think, trying to raise the retirement age.
retirement,
Yes.
yeah.
The point when the French government tried to increase the minimum age of retirement, people were absolutely outraged because how dare you try to, commit more of our lives to capitalism than you've already taken out. 65 is already like a lot of years to be working. Like I've been working since I was 15. You want me to work for 50 years before I've proven my worth? My ability to like access resources in this world. Anyways, all that to say, I think it's really important we've reflected on a lot of what the French have done in order to seek out revolutionary justice, right? And so it's really disheartening my point is that it's really disheartening to see that France is also saying, oh, our hands are tied.
Absolutely.
And taking a
I mean,
backseat.
it's no shock because France has always held really Orientalist positions towards people in the global south. The way that they treated people all across their colonies is horrific,
true.
right?
That's true.
And that continues to manifest today in their policies towards Algerian people in France, towards people from other parts of the African continent. And I think that
to Muslim people.
to Muslim people, to black and brown
I can't
people.
live in France, actually.
Yeah, no, can't.
Yeah.
Okay. France is also going to ban us,
I
but
know.
okay. But that's fine.
okay.
That's okay. Yeah. But here's the thing. I really want us to talk about the fact that France originally said they will abide by the ICC ruling. And then all of a sudden, because of pressure and the Hezbollah and Israel ceasefire that just took place, a lot of people, it's a little bit of a conspiracy theory, but I don't think it's that far off. A lot of people are actually saying that there was some sort of a back end deal that happened under the table between France and Israel with the Lebanese ceasefire now, where they have basically decided to protect French interests in Lebanon for that ceasefire and just walk back their statement on Netanyahu. And what France said is the same thing that the United States said, that is ICC does not have jurisdiction over Israel. And something really preposterous that some of the French government representatives have said is that Israel actually has, they basically call Israel and France democratic states that have judicial systems that are fair. First of all, I just want people to understand, and you guys are welcome to fact check us on this. I actually welcome that.
Yeah, please.
But let's keep in mind, and you're more than welcome to look this up, that Israel actually arrests Palestinian children and puts them into jail, arbitrary detention. Palestinian children and adults are subjected to military courts and military justice system, whereas Israeli citizens have their own civilian, justice system.
It's another layer of dehumanization.
It's a layer of dehumanization. It's a layer of control. It's a layer of
second-class human beings.
Second-class citizens.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that France should be ashamed of itself to even say that Israel has free and fair judiciary. A country that just not only kicked out Al Jazeera, but also recently said that the Israeli government will stop working with Haaretz.
It is
which is
really
an
news outlet,
publication.
literally.
Israeli publication with iconic journalists, Israeli journalists like Gideon Levy working there.
Yeah.
So you really kind of have to
They
take
were
a
like
step back and say, hey, France, what happened?
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that, sorry, you wanted to say something.
Well, I was going to say, like, I would say, like, it really sounds like Israel realized that, oh, actually, people with leftist politics are reading Haaretz, and people who, you know, are anti-Zionist Jews or people who support the anti-Zionist Jews are reading Haaretz, and actually, we don't need objective media anymore, right?
And the interesting thing is that if you go to Haaretz's website, it's not that leftist.
No, it's really not.
Right? Like, it is leftist in a way that there's people like Gideon Levy working there. There's
Yes.
critique of the Israeli government.
Yes.
But it's not that leftist.
No.
And even that is not digestible for Israel right now. And I think that the reason we bring up the example of France is to come to Canada, where we're based right now. And the Canadian government has said that they will abide by the ICC's arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant.
Right.
The reason why we need to be very careful and not celebrate yet is because there's a lot of pressure being placed on Canada, both by the CIJA Israeli lobby in Canada. CIJA is one of the many organizations that, under the veneer of standing up against anti-Semitism, they actually just promote pro-Israel policies. And I know that there's people listening to this that will say, oh my God, how dare you say CIJA is a lobby or... It is. Yeah. Have you actually read what they do? Yeah. Have you read their statements recently? Have you subscribed to their newsletter? It's basically the Canadian APAC. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Which in America, APAC is CIJA. In Canada, CIJA is APAC. So APAC is basically the American Israeli Public Affairs Council, right? So just quickly coming back to this, not only is there a concerted effort from organizations like CIJA to send letters to the government representatives and the prime minister saying that they should reverse their decision to hold Israeli leaders accountable for the crime of genocide and war crimes, crimes against humanity, everything. But also, there's pressure being placed by the United States and American senators like Lindsey Graham and Tom Cotton, who are invoking something, who are saying America should invoke something called the Hague Invasion Act. Do you know about that?
I feel like I saw a blip of this on Twitter and then decided that I wasn't ready to come face to face with that trauma yet.
Yeah. So the Hague Invasion Act is basically something that the American government, after 9/11, decided that they're going to implement as their government policy, which it states that if the International Criminal Court, which is based in Hague, Netherlands, if the International Criminal Court tries to go after American leaders, American citizens, or American interests, which Israel is very much an American proxy colony interest,
Tell us about it.
Then the United States has the authority and might actually invade the Hague. So we're talking about invading the Netherlands. Yeah. That was not on my bingo card for 2024 or for my life for America to say they want to invade the Hague.
No, truly, not for my life.
And this is the country...
A quote-unquote democracy.
Yes, a country that for 20 years, I don't know what the heck happened when they said that, because that was clearly a lie, did democratic nation building in Afghanistan and bombed Iraq and killed people, blew people up to smithereens to spread democracy. We all knew that was a lie, but now you're telling us you want to invade.
I'm not feeling the democracy yet, babe.
Really not feeling the democracy right now. I mean, we want to feel the democracy.
The democracy.
We are pro-democracy.
The democracy is just not in the room with us.
We wish it was in the room with us. It's not here. Yeah. But yeah, so what we need to be careful about, and what our audience, we also invite you to be careful about, is to write to your government representatives in Canada and tell them that, hey, you said you will follow the ICC decision, you will abide by it, you're one of the founding members of the ICC, stick to that. Do not be pressured to go back on your position like France did.
It's true. I think it's really telling how the politics of our political leaders do shift and do come to fruition when we hold them accountable to do so. And that's the thing with democracy. It works when you participate. And so as great it is as a tool to have, we need to use the tool. And so, I would argue that over the last year, especially in Canada, CIJA and other Zionist lobbyists have really commandeered the narrative around the genocide that's going on, and they've really reeled in our political leaders to take a stand and say, we stand with Israel, we stand against anti-Semitism and calling anti-genocide protesters
And we
anti-Semites.
also stand against anti-Semitism.
Literally. And
No,
I
the
think,
point you're making is good, like public pressure.
Exactly. And I think it's really important because we are now seeing the Prime Minister of Canada say, oh, actually, the ICC has made a ruling and people have been anticipating this ruling, right? People have been saying, what if Netanyahu is deemed guilty by the court and there's an arrest warrant there's a warrant that's sent out for his arrest. What are you going to do? And people were anticipating, that Trudeau would have to have a response on this, that Melanie Joly would have to have a response on this. And we were ready to say, people were emailing their MPs, people were emailing Justin Trudeau and Melanie Joly, and they were saying, hey, we expect you to, as a founding member of the ICC, we expect you to abide by and honor the rulings of the ICC. And so if this comes out and, the ICC issues a warrant for Netanyahu's arrest, what will you do? And because so many people I've
been protesting.
Yeah. So many people came together to protest and to lobby Justin Trudeau, just like other lobbies do. He clearly felt the pressure. He clearly realize that actually Gaza is on the ballot, when I run for re-election next year. The people that are voting for me or have voted for me in the past are now saying they won't vote for me if I don't honor this arrest warrant, this ICC ruling, and I have to take a stand against that. And so that's why we're seeing Justin Trudeau. It's not like he decided that objectively this was a good idea and that this was a peaceful idea.
We would like to believe he did that.
Exactly.
But
I'm sure someone on his team did, but at the same time...
prologue.
Exactly. But he's not going to necessarily take the action of doing so without adequate pressure. And so now we're seeing CJ fight back against that. But the point is that we succeeded in getting Justin Trudeau to publicly say, and Melanie Joly, to publicly say that they will abide by this ruling. And that is a win. That's really important. And these are wins that the left in Canada needs to remember, because we don't let ourselves honor those wins, right? Because it's incremental, and we talk about what does it really mean, right? But the point is that it's a step in the right direction that sets a precedent and establishes a boundary.
But
Yes.
to all of that, and very valid, I think it's important for us to also note that this can all be reversed.
Absolutely. And
because
we need to,
people... Sorry, yeah.
And absolutely. And we need to make sure that we keep the pressure on so that bodies like CIJA and the Zionist lobby are facing adequate pressure from the other side as well.
Absolutely.
And being held accountable.
Listen, guys, you're all very powerful. When people come together, I know this sounds very cliche, but when people come
Tell us
together
about it.
and they
Inspire us.
protest, it works.
It does.
It does. It takes time. It's very slow.
Yeah.
This is not the win that's going to free Palestine all of a sudden, but it is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
But
We need
if
to push
we
the needle.
pull our foot from the gas pedal, wow,
Yeah.
I don't even have a license yet, but
Crazy.
From the gas
Wow.
pedal, yeah. So if we take our foot off the pedal, I think all of this momentum that we have can be lost. I'm not being pessimistic. I just don't want people to be complacent.
Absolutely.
I have so many friends. Everybody's sharing on Instagram. Everybody's doing this. But you actually have to send those emails.
You do.
You actually have to continually do that.
Yeah.
This is not something you just do once. And I say this with all love. Please, even if you don't feel comfortable going to a protest, do something else. And a lot of my friends are doing a lot to support, and I respect them so much. But I just want us to make sure we don't lose this momentum.
Absolutely.
Right? So you sign petitions, you send letters, you take part in direct actions wherever you feel safe and comfortable and legal. I think that, it's all really important. And something to keep in mind, Israel does not play fair. The former... so the current prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, requested these warrants. They have now been issued. But the former ICC prosecutor, Fateh Bensouda, was actually threatened by Israel. And these are not, as we're not making this up, this is all online, this is all in the news, this is all, people are going to be like, you don't trust everything online. Yes, we don't. This is all like reputable sources, Associated Press, Reuters, you can read this. I mean, ICC has said it themselves that Fatou Bensouda was threatened, her office was bugged. So every time she would, and ICC would say, hey, we should investigate this killing of for example, a 12-year-old Palestinian boy by Israeli soldiers. All of a sudden, Israel would send a representative in a few days to the ICC, to Fatou Bensouda, and say, so we're actually just opened this investigation into the killing of this child, and we just wanted to let you know. And after a while, it became suspicious. Like, how do they always know what we're investigating? Yeah. And the ICC and also like multiple human rights organizations, including the UN and their representatives, say that basically they figured out that Israel was opening these investigations, what France and the United States called a fair judicial system, as a facade to be like, yeah, we're investigating. But nothing has come of those investigations. Let's talk about the fact that Shireen Abu Akleh, an incredible journalist, was killed by Israel. Right? By Israeli snipers. And like Shireen Abu Akleh was killed by Israeli snipers, and they opened an investigation. Where is it? And if the investigation is complete and they say they're at fault, nobody's actually held accountable.
Wasn't her funeral even like very contested and people kept bothering her?
Her funeral was attacked.
Yeah.
You can't even let Palestinian journalists
die in peace.
Or like people who are pro-Palestine die in peace. No dignity even in death.
That's so unacceptable.
It 100%. And I think to wrap this up, we just want people to know that Israel's not playing fair. Its allies are unfortunately doing everything they can to wash their hands off of this responsibility.
Yeah.
But the history books will not just remember their inaction, it would also remember everybody's inaction, right?
It'll remember our inaction, our passivity,
100%.
Our complicity.
When I studied in the United States, I remember, for my undergrad, I remember people saying so many times, wow, like, you know, if I was alive in 1940s, the Nazis would catch these hands. Where are your hands right now?
Where are the hands?
Like the history books will also not look kindly upon people who are just going about their day saying, this is too much.
My hands are tied.
I'm not a political person.
Yeah.
And lastly, I think it's important for us to know that when states become more autocratic, like we're seeing in the United States, like we're seeing all over Europe, like we're unfortunately seeing with the Pierre Poilievre statements about the ICC arrest warrants, Pierre Poilievre just said that it's ridiculous and that, you know, Justin Trudeau is wrong. Which, listen, we can admit that he's wrong on a lot of things, but in this one, he's not.
Yeah.
And Pierre Poilievre's also saying that, you know, like basically just completely disregarding the International Criminal Court. Yeah. And I want all of our Canadian, Arab, Muslim, South Asian, Black and brown people that are listening to this to be very careful who you're hitching your wagon to.
Yeah.
Because if it's Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, they are making it clear from their federal leader that they do not care about people in the global south or people in the global south that exist in Western countries, because Israel has not only killed Palestinians, it has killed many dual citizens.
Right, absolutely.
Palestinian Americans, Palestinian Canadians, and Palestinians of European ancestry.
And after that, who's next?
A European nationality. Palestinians of European nationality.
Yeah. And after that, who's next, right?
Us.
We see, and that's what people need to realize also, we see migrants being scapegoated in North America so heavily right now. I think you raised such a good point, Taha, that we have to take a multi-pronged approach in order to be able to address such large issues like this. We have to each individually call our MPs, call our elected officials. We need to go to whatever action it is we can, whether that be a protest or any other action. We need to create community and we need to build these things together at the same time and doing it wherever we can in order to make a real difference to any of this.
Absolutely.
And that's what the ICC's ruling is actually meant to signify, that this is the point where we are coming to another consensus. We're being told that there is a new consensus by a court of justice, and that's what we need to mobilize on and follow through with right now.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head, and in the end, all we'll say is, again, it's written on the ICC's website, International Criminal Court's website.
Yeah.
It is actually powerless without the states actually showing up and taking responsibility for what they're, for actually enacting right? The rulings and
Yes.
for taking responsibility for being member states
Yeah.
of the International Criminal Court.
Yeah, that's what accountability
if
looks
you
like.
want Ukraine, justice for Ukraine and for Putin to be held accountable, make sure you're letting your leaders know that justice and justice should be applied across the board. Rulings from the ICC should be applied across the board, because if they let Israeli leaders walk away, you can bet every single autocrat in the world, in addition to Netanyahu, will use this as an example from
Yep.
time immemorial
Yep.
that they also can walk away with horrible crimes like genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crimes of aggression. That's what we want to leave you with, a very positive note. But you have a lot of power, so please
Yeah.
use your privilege and use your power.